Thank you, thank you. All right, I got a little bit of setup here, just a sec. So if a plane goes overhead, I'm gonna do this. All right, so yeah. That was actually really hard to find. Like, I couldn't remember that guy's name. Tattoo. Has anyone actually seen that show? I guess when I travel to other places, I'm not sure what shows were popular in that region. Does anyone know where this is from? Fantasy Island? Well, you've probably seen it, man. You're old and American, so, I mean, he's a good friend. I can make fun of him. He won't yell at me later, I think. Okay, guys. Oh, it's cutting out. Just a sec. So I'm going to talk about sort of a artsy, fartsy, kind of stupid topic, and hopefully I'll entertain everybody and wake you up, because I know how many people are jet lagged still or hungover from last night or something, right? Oh, okay, so everyone's really responsible and came here like a job, huh? And it's like, you're not a hungover or anything? Okay, so that's going to be great. Can't wait to do this. And the only thing, though, is that I did not bring a one-eyed snake for you to touch, and I will not mention forking or dongling, but I may violate the code of conduct because I am a programming motherfucker, and I'm sort of offensive. How many people know about programmingmotherfucker.com? Yeah, how many people bought t-shirts? This one dude bought a t-shirt. Anyone else? It was a present. You didn't even, geez, that's lame. Okay, so I actually sell t-shirts, so it's hilarious. I sell t-shirts, and yeah, whatever. I make like $400 a month off of it. So my apologies in advance. I am an asshole, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but that's basically, yeah, I'm going to say some cuss words, but I'm not trying to violate the code of conduct on purpose. Please don't get me fired from myself, because I work for myself. All right, so now, a quick story about a hipster. How many people know what a hipster is? Ah, okay, great. Okay, a hipster, a monument, and an easel. So I'm in Union Square Park in San Francisco, and there's this monument. It's kind of like that monument. It's like huge, right? And this hipster comes up. He's wearing like a tank top and the cut-off shorts and the big glasses, and he's like, just walks up at this French easel, and he sets it down, and he points it at the monument. And I'm learning to paint, right? So like, you know, here, I'll show you some of the paintings I've got. So I taught myself to paint in about a month, and I did a bunch of color wheels, and then I painted flowers in a vase. The programming motherfuckers are really tough. They paint flowers in vases and stuff. And then, you know, another flower, things like that. And this is like after about a month of just kind of like going through some education, okay? So I'm like, oh, this is cool. This guy's going to paint this monument that's there. So he sets up this easel, and he's got his palette, and he's like this, and he pulls out a canvas, and there's paint on the canvas. I'm like, wait, I thought he was going to paint the monument. Oh, maybe he's fixing it up. I get a little closer look. And it doesn't even look like the monument. It's like some abstract painting with purple and blue and shit on it. And like, why is he trying to paint that in front of the monument? He's like pretending like, oh, I'm going to totally paint the monument. And then he pulls out his brush, and he's like going like this. And I don't think any paint is going on the canvas. I think he's just faking it. So he, like, this asshole went and bought a canvas, had a friend probably paint it, and then he's in the park probably trying to pick up women or something by like pretending he's painting. And he's all like this, he's all like serious, you know, like he's a serious artist. And I'm like, what kind of an asshole does that, right? This is like so fucking lame. At least like paint the abstract thing you're gonna paint there. At least pretend that much, right? So when I learned from learning how to paint, and then when I saw this guy, I'm like, you know what? I can fucking learn to paint outside if this guy can't. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna paint Poland. I may come out tomorrow and paint that thing. I brought like an easel and everything. I totally over-engineered my trip here. 50 pounds of painting crap. It's like a whole painting store in my fucking backpack. It's just unbelievable. So, but the thing about painting is I had read every design book and everything I could trying to learn how to be a better designer. And what I found is they all made no fucking sense. And all I was told by designers was, well, it's because you're a programmer, dude. You're so fucking logical. You can't fucking do anything. But you saw my paintings. How many people think I can paint now? I mean, not well, but paint. Okay, it looked like things. You guys saw they were like, you know, it looked like a squash in a fucking vase. Okay, I can paint, right? It looked like the thing I was trying to paint. Obviously better than Monument Dude, right? So I've now decided that most design education is just bullshit, because clearly if I can learn to paint in about a month, but I can't learn design for shit in 2 years, obviously there's probably something wrong with design education, right? And this sort of summarizes my love-hate relationship with designers. It's this kind of an artist too. It's this feeling like because I'm logical, which really I'm not a person, but because I'm logical, that means that I can't do artistic things. But actually, when you learn to paint, you find out they're super logical about composition, form, how like perspective lines work, everything. There's logic to it, right? But it's just, oh, because I'm logical, I'm not an artist, okay? And so I started thinking about this. So I got a quick story about building guitars. So I build guitars. And I hate guitarists. They're just assholes. Like, no offense to anyone who has actually a nice guitarist, but every time I run to a guitarist, he's like, yeah, dude, you play in a band? I'm like, no, I don't play in a band. Oh, so you're just like a pussy? You don't get on stage and like play like a real man? I'm like, well, I get on stage and I talk, and that's obviously not a problem for me. I just like to make music by myself and do my thing. Like, yeah, whatever, you're not real. Like, yes, I'm not a real musician because I don't want to get in a sweaty studio with a bunch of other dudes and have the equivalent of musical orgy sex with them, and I would rather sit at home and just make shit myself. And I'm like, wait a minute, nobody walks up to Skrillex, right? And they go, hey, Skrillex, are you in a band? Like, nobody walks up to DJ Shout, are you in a band, right? I'm like, I know what I'm gonna do. So when people ask me, like, are you a musician? Yes, I'm a digital musician with analog influences. So like, I'm just totally fucking with them. Basically, I use code to make things, and yeah, I use a computer. Everyone uses a computer. Here, look, okay? Here's a guitar I built. That's a fucking computer, okay? It's a 1950s computer with like switches and shit, but it's a computer, right? This is like a bass 6 guitar I built. And I also found something else. If I go, well, actually I like building guitars more than playing guitar. It's like in Super Mario, I took that mushroom and I went doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Because now they're like, oh, you build guitars? This is a subject I know nothing of. And suddenly I'm like, oh, say it, the plane, the plane, the plane. All right, here we go. And I'm like, okay, now I've got a superpower because I can build guitars. I actually know how they work. But then they went, oh, well, that's because you're a programmer. Well, what the fuck is up with being a programmer and people thinking I can't do shit? So, okay. So then, this leads me to my next. That's my love-hate relationship with musicians. And then I'm like, a quick story about learn Python the hard way and real writers and real books. So I would tell people, like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I guess I'm a writer. I mean, I sell books online and people read them. They go, oh, yeah. And instantly they think he probably works at a restaurant, right? Well, that's what all writers do at first, okay? And then I go, well, no, actually, I like write these books. And, well, I've sold a whole bunch. And, you know, I think maybe 1 million or so people have read them. 1 million or so people? Like, yeah. And they go, what is your book about? And they're thinking 50 Shades of Grey or some shitty Stephen King novel, right? And I'm like, no, it's actually a book that teaches people how to code. Oh, so not a real book. Yes, motherfucker, not a real book. No, it didn't use the English language to relay a topic. And this, again, what the fuck is up with writing about tech and it not being real art? Like, why can't you approach it like it's actually something you're crafting? It's a hard medium. Writing intelligently and entertainingly about a technical topic is kind of a pain in the ass. It's difficult because technical topics are boring as hell, right? I mean, you try and do it and it's just really difficult. But no, I don't get respect for that. So then, a quick story about assholes last night at the speaker's dinner. So I'm sitting there, and my friend Danny, I love Danny, but he always tries to play ambassador and makes things worse. And he's trying to say, hey, Zed's really sorry for when he shit on you about this. Like, yeah, that's true. He didn't say I was sorry. He's learned. Yeah, that's cool. Anyways, let me continue. So I'm just having a conversation with him, and this guy next to me starts laying into me because I don't contribute to Django. Yeah, well, why don't you contribute? Well, everyone else does it. How come you don't do it? Well, that means you're not really. I get this feeling. I'm like, holy shit. Basically, he thinks I'm not a real open source guy because I don't contribute to their project, like your project. But I wrote this fucking book that made a bunch of Python programmers and probably a bunch of Django programmers. So how is that not contributing? Why is it all of a sudden that if I'm not contributing to your project, I'm not really open source? And then I started to realize this actually got worse when I started to write more than code, because now I don't even get respect for coding from programmers because, oh, well, Zed's a writer now. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? I write books about tech, right? And what ends up happening is this is now my love-hate relationship with programmers. It's like, no matter what I do, I love programmers, and I love making things, and I love making new programmers, and I like teaching them. But no matter what I do, now I'm a musician, so I can be discredited, or now I'm a writer, so I can be discredited. Well, who knows what's going to happen when I'm a painter? Or even worse, when they go, yeah, that Zed thinks he can fucking paint. He can't paint for shit. Fuck him. I can paint totally better than he can. I don't think I can paint. I think I learned how to paint. You can see the thing I painted, that's it. He thinks he's a guitarist. I play guitar, that's it. Like, I don't really give a shit, I'm just having fun. So this got me thinking. There's common threads in this. So first off, artists tell me I'm not artistic because I work on developing technical skills. I liked learning about color. I liked learning about, line, siding, everything like that, composition. So a lot of people who aren't really artists think I'm just a nerd, right? So then, writers tell me I'm not a writer because I write tech books. And musicians say I'm not a musician because I like to make music by myself, kind of like the way a programmer does. And programmers think I'm not a real open source programmer because I don't contribute to their projects, right? So I started thinking, everybody thinks I suck at what they do because I do it my way, not theirs, but also mostly because I'm a programmer. If I was actually a writer, they might not think my books were that bad. Actually a writer because I wrote some crappy sci-fi or something like that, right? If I was actually a musician, like I was in some douchebag band with a bunch of guys playing like shitty covers, maybe they'd go, ooh, Zed's a musician. Or if I was actually a painter and I sold some paintings. Oh, and I thought of a hack for that. I'll just sell my paintings for like $1. And then I go, yeah, I'm a fucking painter because a bunch of people bought shitty paintings from me for $1. Right? So I thought, I really like hacking these concepts. And I propose that we start hacking the word creativity to mean basically nothing. We just start saying, hey, you know what? Creativity is just a basic human thing. It's just something you do. I mean, you get up in the morning, you shit, you just created something, right? You're like, bam! That's creativity, motherfucker. Yo, yeah. Dude who's at the easel in front of the monument painting water onto a pre-painted canvas. He's creating whatever. He's the creative type, Obviously, he's wearing this really awesome ensemble, of like hipsterdom. So what if we just start going, oh, yes, well, you know what? Oh, sorry, I got back up. A quick story about my teacher in imaginative drawing. So to make this work, I had to figure out an alternative to creativity. And I'm talking to my teacher, and there's this concept in art where I can paint this guy's face, right? I can like paint his face, or I can paint something from my head. So cartoons, comic books, abstract art, that's imaginative art. And then there's realism. And realism is where I like paint a thing, okay? Now I'm into realism, but I do a little abstract art just for fun. So I walk up to my drawing teacher, I'm like, hey, do you know anything about abstract art? And then like imaginative drawing. And he's like, well, no, I suck at that. He's like, I don't do that. I go, oh. And he was just sort of matter of fact about it. It wasn't a big deal for him. He didn't care. He knew he was creative. And I'd see him draw and paint these things that were just gorgeous. So I thought, we can steal this idea. What if we just lift this distinction of there's creativity. Everyone does creativity, but I'm imaginative. And if you think about it, programming is actually an imaginative art form. You're inventing a thing in your head, coming up with a concept or an idea, and then you're trying to relay it to other people through the medium of programming. And the thing you're making doesn't really exist in the world. So it's not like you can't go and I'm going to code that tree exactly, right? It's like I have to imagine a tree and then try to code it and make it into a game, or I want to imagine a website or something, okay? So proposal 1, start saying creativity is actually just second nature in programming. Everything you do is creative out of necessity because nothing in programming exists in the real world, right? We're just like, oh, well, I mean, creativity is kind of like breathing and shitting for programmers. I mean, yeah, you can be creative, Mr. Painter Dude. That's really awesome. I'm so happy for you. And then we have this. We hack the paradigm, the stereotype. We say, as a programmer, I am more into imaginative programming, where I use technologies to realize my imagination rather than just plain old creativity, right? It's all the words artists use, they mean nothing, right? That's the best part about it. Because now they go into a tailspin, they're like, well, what do you mean imaginative is better than creative? I'm like, oh, it's not better, it's just an alternative thing, and I'm really into the more than imaginative. Well, how did you, and then you win. Okay. You can tell I love fucking with people, right? Okay, so here's the thing now. You guys kind of suck at imaginative stuff, okay? So I think I'm going to start like trying to come up with concepts and ways to teach the imaginative aspect. And it's not the imagination. Everyone has a really great imagination. And it's not the programming skills that I see programmers struggling with. It's the bridging from an idea in your head, this imagination, to something that is in your code and actually works. And that's a big struggle for everybody, me, everybody, right? And I've started kind of culminating and analyzing how I could possibly improve this for people. Now, how many people think that's actually kind of true? Like, it's the difficult part in programming is coming up with the idea and actually making it real in the code. A few? Okay, all right. And everyone else is just awesome. All right, cool. So So I'm going to kind of do 4 types of people. It's total bullshit, but I'm just going to try to lay out what my goal is based on 4 types of people. So the first one is someone who has technique and no imagination, okay? So this is someone who is a stereotypical programmer, okay? This is the guy you think is like, you know, he wants his red sling-line stapler, you know, and he's like, I don't know how to process these problems, okay? So that's bullshit. We know that's bullshit. Everyone has some form of imagination. Maybe they have a problem expressing it, okay? So then, imagination and no technique is your stereotypical business dude. He's like, you know, he's like, reads 5 random words in CIO magazine. He's like, yeah, you know what, man? I mean, with Instagram and Facebook and yeah, and he does some coke and he walks off. And we're like, what the fuck did that mean? And then he comes back 2 days later and he's like, this isn't what I was talking about. I mean, I was talking about balloons, dude. Okay, that guy, actually, I think, doesn't really exist. We run into him a lot because of our industry. But I think people who actually have imagination and want to make something eventually learn the techniques necessary to create it. So a lot of my work in my books, teaching beginners coding, is to improve this person, right? It's to say, like, I want to take people who have imagination and give them the tools to realize it. Now, there's a third type person that I think does not exist at all, unless you have some sort of like disability or something like that. I don't think there's people who have 0 imagination and 0 technique. Right? If you've been a kid for any amount of time, you know that you have at least imagination, even if you totally suck at anything you do, right? And then finally is my goal. So what I'm thinking I want to do is I want to make it so that everybody has imagination and techniques, and then the ability to make that imagination real using their techniques. Okay? So it's a huge goal. I mean, for me, it's like when I say I don't contribute, well, I want to contribute to things like this, like the world. I don't want to contribute to just like random open source projects. I want to like actually make things and put them out and do things like this. Okay? So what I thought is I would like go back and analyze based on what I know about art and what I'm doing and come up with a process that seems to encompass all the different things you probably do in programming, including like all the artistic things, the design, all the stuff, and come up with a process that is taken from writing, is taken from music, is taken from art, and is taken from programming, and that seems to fit pretty much everything you're going to do because it's a bit vague, but you can refine it and apply it to different things. And incidentally, this is like a common thing is there's people who believe that if you have process in art, that you've like sullied the art. Like, oh my God, you think about this in a process, you're just stupid. It should come from a wellspring of perfect imagination. And it's actually bullshit. Anyone who's a professional artist or musician or anything has a process. And if you don't know what your personal creative process is, you're probably not very mature in the thing you're doing. So it's good to sit down and kind of like come up with your own process. It doesn't have to be like this. It can be something totally different. So my imaginative programming process starts with perceiving the imaginative idea. Okay, now this, there we go, that's the trick. This is sort of the basic thing everyone does, right? What is it? It's you have an itch to scratch, right? It's just you go, man, it totally sucks booking flights online. Okay, this is like your imaginative little idea, right? Okay. Then number 2, you establish a concept. So this is a little different because it's something, the plane. Okay, so you establish a concept. And the concept basically is what you're kind of try to relay with it, or maybe it's what you're going to try to learn from it, or maybe it's what you're going to try and use. So for example, I'm making a website, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Django, and I think I want to go with a dark design, and the concept is going to be like, you know, simplified flight plan management or something like that, okay? Very, very simple. You just come up with your concept. And what this does, it gives your idea that's been walking around your head and could be anything, clothes. It's going to walk around outside, and it basically gives it, it's going to wear clothes, right? And then the next thing that I do is I research. So I research techniques and technologies. And the idea here is that your concept might be okay, you're going to use Django. But what you got to do is you have to research the tools you might use, the techniques you might need. So in my case, I wanted to do some painting projects, so I would go out and I learned to paint so I could actually understand what it was the project was going to entail. Or you might go learn about new technologies you need. And that should refine your concept some more, okay? And the idea is you're slowly taking this idea and you're sort of refining it more and more and bringing it down. And then as you go through it, there's tools you can use that I'll show you in a sec. And then what you do is you refine the concept through composition. Now, all the previous 3 steps are pretty common in programming. Everyone does this. But composition is sort of weird. It doesn't really, you think it doesn't fit in programming, but I think I have a way that this works. So composition is the idea of you're creating form or a structure that the form you have works within, okay? So in writing, this is like, I'm going to do first person, and it's going to be, the narrator's going to lie to me, and it's going to be set in science fiction. So I'm coming up with a composition. Then what I'll do is like, okay, I think it's going to be in free verse or something like that, okay? In music, it's like, I'm going to do it in this key, and I'm going to compose the music. But in writing and music, those things you just do, right? You just kind of like, that's part of making a piece of writing or a piece of music. Painting is a better metaphor. So in painting, my composition, I have this problem that I have this infinite sort of three-dimensional space. And I got to put it on a two-dimensional canvas like this big. So what I got to do is I got to pick a piece of the world that I'm going to try and make a three-dimensional illusion out of, okay? Programming is very similar. You have this massive, immense just amount of things you could make in code, and you can have it do whatever you want. And so the idea is that if you put a box around the stuff you're going to make, then you can compose it, and that sort of narrows down your idea, makes it easier to execute, right? And this also cures people of the problem. Everyone ever that guy who finds every edge case and insists that the project is doomed if you don't solve every edge case? Right? You know, he's like, well, what if Martians come down to the planet and they go into our data centers and they pee their acidic urine on the sidewalls, and that causes ants to come and eat the acidic urine that goes, and you're like, dude, this is never gonna, it could happen, there's a probability. Okay? This composition basically helps you avoid that problem. Everyone does it, okay? And the concept within composition is basically narrow your feature set, or narrow the idea, or start throwing out like parts of the idea that you needed, and pick your composition. Pick the best set of features that will relay your idea to other people. And then explore through prototypes. So what you do is, how many people prototype before they code versus, like, how many people prototype? Yeah, I think it's kind of a lost art. I think at some point prototyping within programming was like shit on, and nobody wants to do it anymore. How many people just like, they basically write code that's just code. They just go and code. They don't do prototypes or kind of figure it out or anything. A few people. But the rest of you just don't code? you have like a brain meld with your computer. You're like, and it comes out, you know? Okay, so I do prototypes. I do prototypes on paper, right, to come up with screen ideas. I do prototypes in code. So let's say I don't know how to use OAuth. I'll do like a little simple web server. Okay, that's how I know how to do OAuth. I'll crank out like a one-page prototype and just like work on the prototype and kind of go, okay, this is the kernel of the idea. It holds my concept. It holds my idea. It realizes it through a composition, and it's something that people can look at and go, oh, I know what that is, right? So then you make it real. Once you have your prototype, you have everything you need to start actually working on the real thing and executing on the actual implementation of the idea. And there's a warning on this whole process, this whole thing. Okay, we are programmers, so it's recursive. How many people have heard the terms top-down versus bottom-up programming? Like you like build things with pieces? Okay, so actually, I've never really done it like in strict top-down or bottom-up. I don't think anyone does. I think what people actually do is they do a sort of like a top-down or bottom-up in pieces. So what I would like to say is like, okay, these processes are actually recursive. You start at the top. Maybe you start with a concept at the top, but maybe you have to go and work on another thing. You can do the whole process in a small piece. Or maybe you can go and like do parts of the process, realize it's not going to work, and then back up. And everyone who does art or does music or does anything like does this. They work recursively and iteratively over the things they're working on, refining them until they meet their goals, okay? So now, I'm going to give you a concept, like a concrete example. This is something I did. I'm going to give you like a few examples until I run out of time. So this is this thing called Project Zorn. How many people are from Sweden? Anybody from Sweden? Do you know Anders Zorn? No. Oh, you're going to learn something about your own country. Okay, so Anders Zorn was a painter, and I started loving his paintings. He's like my favorite painter. And the thing I found about his painting style was he only used 4 colors. He used a red, a yellow, a black, and a white. So it sounds like impossible because you need a blue, right? But through that, I learned how to mix all these color combos. And it really taught me a lot about color. So I'm like, hey, what if I could do something like this and teach people about color theory? It was like a huge, huge advantage for me. So what I did, so that's my idea. Concept. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to show people that I discover Anders Zorn, right? And I'm going to show them how to do color. And I'm going to do it kind of like Project Euler. So anyone seen Project Euler? Where you like solve little math problems in code and you slowly learn to code? Okay. I'm going to do it like that. And this is just a simple idea I came up with to show you this, right? So then I had to research. Okay, so I started playing with Zurb Foundation. I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to prototype the color scheme. I'm going to go for a dark color scheme because I want to see how you do the design with that. I contacted the Zorn Museum and asked them if I could get permission to use like their thing. They sent me an image of him. It was great. They're like, totally, you can, and here's an image. I continued to learn to paint so I could actually know what the hell I'm talking about. And then I started devising exercises, coming up with like, okay, what are the first 5 exercises? So that's my research. Now it's time to compose it. So composition comes down to all the things I could do. I could do everything. I could do like something like Color Lovers, where it's all community-based. I could do straight static. I could do like any kind of palette. I could help people pick palettes. I could have people debugging things, all sorts of stuff I do. What I want to do is I want to do a composition with a box around that. So what I've got is I'm going to make 52 exercises, because that's what I do. They're going to go up online, just static files. And maybe I'll have it where you can upload your answer and compare it to other people's answers. So a simple Django app to do that, okay? And then I did a prototype. So let me see if I can get this prototype to open without crashing anything. Just a sec. And so this is the prototype. Just a modified Zurb Foundation, and you can see that's Anders Zorn down there. And keep in mind, he painted this with just 4 colors. The plane. Anyways. Now, there's nothing on here. This is just a prototype. This is just a simple, I just basically put it together with Zurb and picked one of their template formats and figured out what I wanted it to say. None of these links go anywhere, but that's all you need. You just basically need to lay it down. In drawing, there's this concept where if I want to draw a real thing, I got to get the proportions right. So all I got to do is translate 2 dots from the real world that make up a line I'm going to use onto my canvas. So this is the 2 dots onto the canvas. I've done my concept, I've done my composition, I've done my ideas, and now I've got this. So now the next stage, which I'll do eventually, I have a habit of like coming up with the ideas, getting to this stage, and being like, fuck it, I'd rather play guitar or paint or whatever, is realize it. Start writing the exercises, which I'll probably start doing here, and maybe start working on that little uploader app that goes with it. It's simple, like nothing complex. None of this stuff needs to be that complex. And then I've got myself a little idea. So there's some other ideas. Oh, wow, that totally got fucked up. We'll just skip that slide. And then I'm done. So basically, here, hold on. Okay, everybody read that? Here, let me boost that up. This is the Vimperator presentation system. There we go. Okay, so another example is this talk. The idea. Okay, I want to teach programmers how to do more imaginative things, how to like help them make what they do and make it real. Okay. Another idea, painting in Poland. So I went a little crazy. I'm like, oh, I want to paint in Poland. Well, this involved researching how the hell do you paint outside? It's a pain in the ass. By the way, if you do acrylic painting, it sucks painting outside because acrylics dry super fast. And then other ideas. I had a thing called Speaker Bio because I got tired of going around to conferences. I have a thing called Dentata, don't even ask what that is. And from Dentata, I have Python Lust, which is like a simple little Unix server toolkit. It handles things like forking and crap you do in like servers to make little daemons. It's like tiny, it's more of an educational project, but I use it and stuff. And the final big tips are this. Take a notebook with you, right? And write things down. Another really cool trick is set up a separate account, like your idea guy account, and email your ideas to yourself. So you get an idea, like hop on your phone, and then I could totally just eat cheese, you know? Do whatever you need to like email yourself the ideas. Fear is the biggest killer in this process. So in the beginning, if you feel like you're worried people will think you suck at programming or whatever you do because you don't follow XP or whatever like that, you need to set up some sort of space or place where you're allowed to you're not going to make mistakes or you're allowed to fail. It doesn't matter. In music, they have this concept, learn the changes, right? Learn the music and then forget it. Just play it. So the same kind of deal. Learn the stuff. Don't be afraid of it. Know your stuff. But then when you sit down to actually do it, just make your thing. And also talking to other people really helps. But make sure that you're okay with like working on your own and building solitude. I think a lot of great creativity more comes from solitude than working in a team environment. But a lot of great implementation and making things real happen when you work with a team. It's sort of an interesting dynamic to explore. Okay, so that's the end of my talk, and I've got 15 seconds. So thanks for listening, and I'm done.
Thank you.